here. Again, I'm encouraging everyone, if you can turn on your camera, I would be delighted to see your uh, beautiful and handsome faces. So it's been a while, so we don't have synchronization for 2 weeks. 2 weeks yata. Okay, so basically, so dito, before we proceed to the reporting, um, I already posted the different activities on your Moodle. So all of the submission of output as well as homework will be now on um will now be on Moodle. But submission of PowerPoint, excuse me, submission of PowerPoint evaluation as well as the visual presentation will still be on Google Classroom. But again, if you are able to transfer your file from Google Classroom to Moodle, it is much better. Okay? So, remind ko lang kayo for output. So, for chapter 2, so the reading materials are actually divided into two. So, the reading materials for chapter 2, part 1 will be the due date will be this week. If I'm not mistaken, ang reading due date will be on Sunday. Ang sasagutan nyo will be your share your thoughts, part 1. And then by next week, you have to accomplish the reading materials chapter 2 or the part 2. Then, share your thoughts. And then, itong homework number 2, chapter 2, at saka yung output number 2, will be submitted up to October 4. Sorry. Para mga October 3. October 3, tama. October 3. And then, again, lahat ng submission natin now will be on Moodle. Okay? And then, a link in order for you to know when will be your reporting. So, on this case, as you can notice here, yung chapter 2 natin would be 2 weeks. So, from September 20 up to 27. And then, from 4 to 8, there will be an academic day. Is that okay with you? Or, kasi pwede naman kayong kasi meron tayong isang linggo na free. So, hindi naman talaga siya actually free kasi you can use that October 4 to 8 for our academic day. Kasi grabe yung server, pinapag just kidding. Natawas si Mauricio, parang feeling ko, gano'n talaga yung nararamdaman. Hindi, joke lang. Kasi natagtad kayo nung sa submission of PowerPoint, sa submission of tapos yung chapter 2 within this week lang. So for October 4 to 8, there will be no synchronous session. So you can use that time to accomplish all of the requirements. Pero kung ayaw nyo may gawin, but you still have enough time, so that will be bahala kayo kung ano gusto nyo. Basta October 4 to 8, that will be our academic day. Okay? Tapos, nakalagay na rin dyan report kung kailan. So, please be reminded of that. Now, to those students who I haven't checked their PowerPoint as well as the evaluation, I'm still looking for a time to finish that. So, just have to do something. But, regardless kung wala pang grade, okay lang, you may now proceed with your video presentation. Okay? Kasi mga late submission na rin naman yun. Kasi if I'm not mistaken, September 10 ang ating due date for that. Okay, so for the reporting, ang gagawin lang natin will be makikinig tayo on the report. All you have to do is to play. Now, if you have any questions, just listen. And then if I ask you to pause for a while, then maybe share your concept, just post the video. So for today, we're going to hear the report of the Legazpi Micay, Pacaanas, Pacaanas, or video ka color film. So medyo marami siya. All you have to do
Alam
is
na.
skip paki-skip na lang for the motivational part. Okay, so huwag na natin gawin yung motivational part.
Skip.
The purpose of the motivational part is the purpose of motivation ng natin is kailangan kasi sa lesson natin
Tapos sabi ni, magkano yung nagre-remind di raw stable.
I need this of fear. Sila
Pero sanay naman ako sa ganun.
action.
Hindi, okay lang yan.
Ayan, siguro.
Nire-record.
Sige, ako na lang mag-share for you. Ako will be looking for those. Nakapag-submit ka na ba sa PAUS? Nakapag-submit ka ba sa Google Classroom? Para ako lang mag-share.
Meron na po, sir.
Okay, sige. Pagtayin mo na, ano na lang.
Ulit pa
Okay.
naman.
Skip
So,
pala ang
let us start
motivation.
now with the report of
Pag may brown dito, nandutuldo.
I am now
Hindi.
giving you the floor.
Tapos si Strop. Pababa na lang ako, Rol.
Where are you?
Salamat.
You may now start. You may now present the...
Naglib si De La Cruz ka, naglim.
Ano ka ba si De La Cruz? Baka mamaya wala pa rin siyang
Naglim.
wala pa rin siyang video presentation. Siya pa naman una. Pero parang wala nga.
Sabay left.
De La Cruz? Can you hear us, De La Cruz? Reynald. De La Cruz Reynald yan, di ba? Taring Pacaanas, parang party-party lang sa background niyo. Sana all. May pa-party sa likod. Sige, kindly call De La Cruz. While waiting for De La Cruz, Legaspi, you may now proceed first with your discussion.
Yung sa video, na po, sir, papasok po. I-present yung video.
Present lang yung video, Legas.
Wait lang po.
Mabay
Gusto mo ako na rin present. Pero gusto ko matuto kayo on how to present para you know what to do. Tapos the grade of video presentation, again, the grade of video presentation, by the way, will be kung kailan kayo nag-report, doon nyo lang malalaman yung report nyo. Doon nyo lang makikita yung tawag dito, grade mo. Legaspi, kaya ba yan today? Kasi we don't have a lot of time. Marami pa kayo mag-report. Ayan na. Maririnig ba namin? Messenger pa nga. Sana all kumakain yun sa movie. Kain nga. Uy, pogi nun. Oh. Ayun o. Nasa unahan.
Ayaw patalo ni sir.
Hindi ka nagka-agree.
Hindi sir. Ewan lang sir.
Hindi ako nag-joke ni Kia, pogi yung kanina nandun. Ano, Legaspi, kaya ba yan today? Ako, wala rin ako palang kasi Legaspi, wala rin presentation here. Topic out time lang yun dito. Ano na ba si Legaspi? So we cannot proceed with characteristic of CDP without knowing the principle first. Ay, ano ba? Kaya ba yan talaga today? Or... Sige, Micay, ikaw muna while waiting for De La Cruz saka Legaspi. Mukhang they are actually not prepared.
Ako muna, sir.
Sino ba? Who is speaking ba? Si Micay. Sige, Micay. Okay. You may present your PowerPoint presentation. You may present your video presentation. Kaya rin ba today, Micay? Sabi ko na kanina, mag-prepare na eh. Pacaanas, parang Portillo mag-prepare na. Parang prepare na sa Pacaanas, ang daming mic oh. Cosmopolitan yan. Well, anyway, I would like to comment Pacaanas if wala lang akong time mag-post kasi yung PowerPoint kasi medyo mataas yung MB ng PowerPoint. Pero of all PowerPoint I saw in the video presentation, kay Pacaanas yung very creative, very engaging. Wala lang akong time i-present pero gusto ko sana i-post sa lahat. Mataas lang yung MB kasi. Ayan. Sige. Micay? Prepare muna kami ng popcorn.
Sir, ito na po, sir.
While the video presentation is playing, you can ask questions. You can add the pogi talaga yun, oh.
Ayoko na tumawa. Mahina, Micay.
Sir, nag-appear na po ba dyan si Pink?
We are able to saw your see your presentation.
Ito na po, sir.
Okay.
Yung nakita yung natin, yung messenger natin.
Oo. In-road page pa.
Oo nga, betlog.
Wait lang, Micay, ha? Sige, kahit i-post for a while, Micay.
Yung may nagdadaldalan habang may online class. Ang ina talaga nito, nag-birthday lang eh, no? Ang ina pinapainit talaga nito ulo ko eh.
Micay, wag po tayo maingay sa messenger. Nag-feedback dun sa
Is your
Gmail.
video playing right now?
Uy, ano ba yan?
Kasi I think there's a problem with the audio.
Yan, umalis ka.
Naka-post po siya, sir.
Ayan, umalis muna siya, tama lang.
Play mo, ha? Tapos
Opo,
while you are
Napipindot,
playing the video, kindly mute your
Hindi prepare.
Okay po.
Prepare
dapat
tayo.
yun, di ba? We cannot hear the video.
Pero dito sa akin, sir.
Para rinig yung video.
Ganito gawin mo, dun sa present.
Ano yan, ay? Ano yan?
Naka-screen ata sa screen.
Instead of the entire screen.
Kasi pag screen share tapos yung
i-post mo
yung parang
tab.
ano yun?
Okay po.
DL
So,
player.
pinili mo yung present.
Hindi
ilalabas na three
kailangan
options.
dapat sa window
Your entire
sa
screen,
browser.
window, and na tab. Click mo yung tab.
Kaya ang bala ko dito, ipe-play ko dun sa mismong in-upload kong
Pag
file
na-click mo yung
sa
tab,
drive.
may
May
magpapop
ganon?
up dyang, tama, may
I-play,
magpapop up.
ay, pwede i-upload
Tapos
natin
sa
sa YouTube.
pinakababang part, may makikita kang share
Pwede rin yun.
Ganun
Kung
na
may
lang.
oras kang ngayon.
Yung sa akin, saglit lang yun eh.
Lang, sir, kasi
Diba nga,
hindi po
dami ko
nag-upload
kaya
yung top
Gmail.
ng video, sir.
Hindi.
Opo.
Pero nasa Google Chrome siya.
Yung video ko po kasi nandito lang po sa video player ng desktop ko. Pero try ko po yung nasa website.
Oo, yung nasa Google Drive yung i-play mo. Yung nasa
Sige
Google.
po.
Open mo siya using Google Chrome.
Okay po.
Tagal si Nyepes, oh, pukin ng ino. Ay, sorry.
While waiting for Micay, Uy, pag gusto nyo ng milk tea, order lang kayo sa amin. Nag-promote, nag-advertise. Halimbawa, nag-ano kayo, gusto nyo mag-food trip, just message us. Ayan na si Micay. Ayan.
Play ko po ulit, sir, kung meron.
Sige, break, no?
Characteristics of competency-based learning.
Ayan, we can hear loud and clear.
Okay na po, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Good day. I'm Chris Jervin and Micay of CPT 32. Today, we will discuss about advantages of competency-based learning. Adult learners is different from children or child learners because as an adult, they have already skills that they acquired during life experiences. With this topic, I will explain why this is the way of learning that suits them the most as adult learners. Kindly review some time skill for answering the question. The advantages of competency-based learning is the things or the situations that they can benefit and make a learning more suitable and fast. Especially to those individuals that don't have time like the traditional learners had. As you can see on the infographic picture, there is a comparison between competency-based learning and traditional education, where we can see the difference like the average time to graduate. The average time to graduate when going to competency-based learning method is only 30 months. And the traditional education needs 60 months to graduate. One of the 5 advantages of competency-based learning is the flexible or flexibility. First, flexibility is the one of the 5 advantages that we can acquire. The reason is simply because with this learning method, there is no rigid schedules, no settled semesters, no classes. Instead, students are guided by the facilitators to their learning and control when and where they complete projects and assessments. Second, self-paced. Unlike the traditional education, competency-based learning is a method of learning that is straight to the point where students can focus on what they want to learn and to have a comfortable schedules or deadlines. As soon as the students feel that they can prove their mastery, they can take the assessment that to follow the traditional curriculum, which you can choose what subject you want to learn. Third is engaging or engagement. This is probably the most powerful advantage when it comes to CBL because it increases a student's engagement. It increased because they were free to choose what they wanted to study because the content is personalized to each student and it's more relevant to
Kuya Joe,
experience
pa-off
and
ng mic.
engagements.
Ay, sorry.
The next is affordable or affordability. The education under the CBL is more affordable for the reason competency-based education programs are available online and use technology to reduce operating costs, leading in lower tuition fees. Because of this, adult learners they will no longer think about the cost of their education and it's more accessible. The next is skill-based. This is where the adult learners will benefit the most. It's because competency-based learning is focuses on real-world skills and competency development. This is the key characteristics needs for a particular career, ensuring that the material or the subject is relevant to its learners. And for our last part, the conclusion. Adult learners must know the advantages of competency-based learning for more engagement. Unlike traditional or other educational learning methods, CBL or competency-based learning as a suitable structure when it comes to adult learners. It will benefit them well. CBE or competency-based education has more to offer when it comes to skill and competence mastery. Last is, competency-based education efforts have focused more on the benefits for the learners. For listening, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Micay. No, that's a great report. You very presented well.
Thank you po.
Not very well presented the idea, the concept as well as the idea. However, one thing that I noticed on your report is that are you reading from somewhere?
Yung camera ko po kasi sir, medyo low-tech kaya nasa gilid po. Kaya mukha po akong nakaharap sa ibang direksyon.
Pero are you reading somewhere? Kasi okay lang naman kung nag-read. However, there are some part of the report na parang nahalata nga na somehow that you are reading. However, I would like to commend you because your voice is modulated as well as you didn't, you try your best to use English as the medium of the instruction, which is actually good. And then you are very well prepared with the report. I would like to commend you on that. Sana ganyan din yung mga next reporter. Kaya lang, sabi ko, yung sa pag-deliver, somehow, parang nahalata siya na scripted because in teaching, it is not supposed to be scripted. Although you have the option kasi, di ba, sabi ko nga. Pero mas maganda siya kung yung act as natural, yung parang natural lang talaga. Then somehow on your report, parang may nakita akong part doon na parang nahalata na you are reading something or you are reading this script. But overall, I would like to congratulate you guys on that. Now, regarding to the report of the guy, I would like to ask which among the advantages of the CBT? No? He mentioned affordable, flexible, engaging, self-paced, and skill-based. Which among the five advantages you think na ito yung pinaka-advantages, ito yung pinaka-advantage ng CBT? If I am a teacher, then I will use this one. What do you think will be the advantage on your part as a teacher? Micay, siyempre ikaw yung report, ikaw yung tatanungin ko.
For me sir, yung yung advantage po as a teacher po ng adult learners is yung self-paced po sir.
Why?
Kasi as a teacher sir, unlike nga dun po sa mga children learners, kailangan sa mga bata totok pa pag tinuturuan mo sila. Pero sa adult po sir, since self-paced nga po sila, more on yung knowledge po nila tsaka yung way of learning po nila naka-base na po sa learning experience nila. Kaya as a teacher po, hindi na po ako masyadong mahihirapan sa pagtuturo sa kanila.
Actually, hindi ka talaga mahihirapan magtuturo. Mahihirapan ka on how you are going to assess them as well as how are you going to evaluate them. And as a teacher, it is more advantageous to us, no, yung CBT. Kasi nga, when it comes to the presentation of idea, as I mentioned, di ba, parang hindi ka na magpa-PowerPoint presentation, hindi ka na talaga yung sa setup ng classroom, mag-discuss pa. Kasi, as mentioned, in CPE, the idea will be, it is more on competence. Okay? So, thank you, Micay. Let us now proceed to the next reporter, which is si Pacaanas. Mas maraming moment.
Charging done, Your Highness.
Charging done na daw. I will give you the floor now, Pacaanas. Followed by Pangan and Portillo. Nag-comment ako dun sa Micay, sa Google Classroom.
Sige po sir, salamat po.
What are those Neanderthals up to? Don't they know I'm busy spoiling myself? Good day everyone. Today, Module 2 Principles of Competency-Based Learning Characteristics of CBL will be discussed.
But first, a word from our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Motivation.
There's been a lot of discussion lately about how to better engage students in their learning. One promising strategy is competency-based learning, or CBL. But what exactly is CBL, and how will it change a student's learning experience? CBL organizes learning around students' interests, needs, backgrounds, or aspirations. It provides authentic assessments of student progress through demonstrations or products which establish students' mastery of the subject. Students advance only upon mastery of the subject, not according to a calendar date. CBL offers transparency for students, teachers, and parents. Both teachers and students have clear objectives, and parents are kept in the loop about their students' progress. Why should we adopt CBL? CBL provides opportunities for student-driven, practical learning environments, and it successfully engages young people in their learning.
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh! Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
Duh, SpongeBob. A doctoral dissertation study published in 2016 titled Impact of Competency-Based Education and Assessment on Program Outcomes found that the implications of implementation of competency-based education and its systematic assessment of competencies will have a positive impact on program-level outcomes, such as graduation, placement, and student learning, as evidenced by employer satisfaction. The research findings determined that while competency-based education participation did not significantly impact graduation, it did impact graduate placement. Competency-based education is not an easy way to earn a college degree. Instead, it is a different way to earn a degree. It is just as rigorous and as challenging as a degree completed within a traditional educational framework. Students must demonstrate that they know the content and are able to apply it at a high level of expectation, which is typically far more demanding than simply attending a class, completing a set of assignments, and passing midterm and final examinations. Standards should also not only to inform the curriculum for each program within each discipline, but that they should also modify it so it will treat learners more of an organic process of learning and teaching, so they can induce true human flourishing, instead of the usual mechanical process of producing learners where the student is treated to serve the aims of increased workers. A student in CBE is treated as a crop to cultivate and let the student grow based on the conditions the teacher has given to let the student flourish. It is like farming natural organic vegetables, not producing mechanical parts to serve as a functionality for the whole system. Self-paced learning is the cornerstone of competency-based education model. Because CBE emphasizes learning over seat time, students can progress at their own pace. Each of them is not restricted by having to wait on others within a class. Thus, if a student says to the teacher that the student has learned the topic in advance or has prior experience, they can help accelerate the progress within a course of study. Extra time can be taken to learn new content and skills due to this. Competency-based learning is also very conducive to online learning environment compared to traditional face-to-face environment. Schooling can also become competency-based if students have multiple opportunities for achieving and demonstrating competency in a given area. If learning opportunities are so structured that students cannot make repeated attempts to develop competency in areas they find difficult, or if they do not get several chances to demonstrate the competencies they have acquired, it is fruitless to expect substantial changes in schooling outcomes. Therefore, competency-based education must be implemented with the implication of changing structured, linear, and traditional curriculum into personalized, self-paced, and skill-based. Bottom line of the CBE model is about meeting the end result intended, efficacy. The most important factor of the implications of CBE is the overall quality of it lies in the impact graduates have on society within their sphere of influence. That is why there is now a national interest in connecting program quality with teacher effectiveness in the classroom. The education system around the world are being reformed, and this is an important time in the world's educational system. It is like a race to determine which country's education system shall prevail successful, and withstanding the immense changes over the past 10 years brought on by technology for teaching and learning. Higher education institutions are at a crossroads and must re-evaluate the effectiveness of paradigms they have implemented for decades. Personally, my stance of the idea about a learning revolution or changing the education system is that it should be customized according to your circumstances and personalizing education to the people you're actually teaching. This is the answer to the future. Remember that life is not linear. It's not a straight line. Life is organic. Life should be given time to flourish according to the conditions. We create our lives symbiotically as we explore our talents in relation to the circumstances they help to create for us. Or, we find our passions symbiotically as we explore our talents in relation to the circumstances that the education system helps to create for us. Now, what I mean to say is that the problem in today's mindset is people selling ideas. Ideas that aren't meant to stay with you because, in the first place, those are the interpretation of another people. You must create your own idea of something before it becomes a part of you. Personalization of ideas and beliefs. People who do not have a sense of self are those who cling to being a believer rather than a truth seeker. Do you know what Socrates meant by the unexamined life is not worth living? Because not personalizing your set of beliefs and ideas and opting for following another person's idea for you, you have already failed to plan and therefore you're planning to fail at life. Or not examining your self's belief and idea and choosing to follow your parents' choices for you. This is a sign that you shall not grow into adulthood well, that you are still being mouth-fed by your instructors. Pedagogy. You're still a child learner. Only when we examine our own self and stop following other people's paths that they have paved for us, or linearity, is when we achieve the meaning of being an adult learner. Now for the second part of this report, we'll listen to Bring on the Learning Revolution from TED by Sir Ian Ken Robinson. Thank you.
Look, I'm good. I have one climate crisis. I don't really need the second one. But this is a crisis of not natural resources, though I believe that's true, but a crisis of human resources. I believe fundamentally, as many speakers have said during the past few days, that we make very poor use of our talents. Very many people go through their whole lives having no real sense of what their talents may be, or if they have any to speak of. I meet all kinds of people who don't think they're very good at anything. Actually, I kind of divide the world into two groups now. Jeremy Bentham, the great utilitarian philosopher, once spiked this argument. You know, he said there are two types of people in this world: those who divide the world into two types, and those who do not. Well, I do. And I meet all kinds of people who don't enjoy what they do. They simply go through their lives getting on with it. They get no great pleasure from what they do. They endure it rather than enjoy it and wait for the weekend. But I also meet people who love what they do and couldn't imagine doing anything else. If you said to them, don't do this anymore, they'd wonder what you're talking about. Because it isn't what they do, it's who they are. They say, but this is me. You know, it would be foolish for me to abandon this because it speaks to my most authentic self. And it's not true of enough people. In fact, on the contrary, I think it's still true of a minority of people. And I think there are many possible explanations for it. And high among them is education. Because education, in a way, dislocates very many people from their natural talents. And human resources are like natural resources. They're often buried deep. You have to go looking for them. They're not just lying around on the surface. You have to create the circumstances where they show themselves. And you might imagine education would be the way that happens, but too often it's not. Every education system in the world is being reformed at the moment, and it's not enough. Reform is no use anymore, because that's simply improving a broken model. What we need, and the word's been used many times during the course of the past few days, is not evolution, but a revolution in education. This has to be transformed into something else. One of the real challenges is to innovate fundamentally in education. Innovation is hard because it means doing something that people don't find very easy for the most part. It means challenging what we take for granted, things that we think are obvious. The great problem for reform or transformation is the tyranny of common sense. Things that people think, well, they can't be done any other way because that's the way it's done. I love that word, disenthrall. You know what he means? That there are ideas that all of us are enthralled to, which we simply take for granted as the natural order of things, the way things are. And many of our ideas have been formed not to meet the circumstances of this century, but to cope with the circumstances of previous centuries. But our minds are still hypnotized by them. And we have to disenthrall ourselves of some of them. Now, doing this is easier said than done. It's very hard to know, by the way, what it is you take for granted. And the reason is that you take it for granted. So let me ask you something you may take for granted. How many of you here are over the age of 25? That's not what I think you take for granted. I'm sure you're familiar with that already. But are there any people here under the age of 25? Great. Now, those over 25, could you put your hands up if you're wearing a wristwatch? Now, that's a great deal of us, isn't it? Ask a room full of teenagers the same thing. Teenagers do not wear wristwatches. I don't mean they can't or they're not allowed to, they just often choose not to. And the reason is, you see, that we were brought up in a pre-digital culture, those of us over 25, and so for us, if you want to know the time, you have to wear something to tell it. Kids now live in a world which is digitized, and the time for them is everywhere. They see no reason to do this. And by the way, you don't need to do it either, it's just that you've always done it, and you carry on doing it. My daughter never wears a watch. My daughter Kate, who's 20, she doesn't see the point. You know, as she says, you know, like, it's a single function device. You know, like how lame is that? You know, and I say, no, it tells the date as well. You know, it has multiple functions. But you see, there are things we're enthralled to in education. Let me give you a couple of examples. One of them is the idea of linearity. That it starts here and you go through a track, and if you do everything right, you will end up set for the rest of your life. Everybody who's spoken at TED has told us implicitly or explicitly a different story. That life is not linear, it's organic. We create our lives symbiotically as we explore our talents in relation to the circumstances they help create for us. But you know, we have become obsessed with this linear narrative. And probably the pinnacle for education is getting you to college. I think we are obsessed with getting people to college. Certain sorts of college. I don't mean you shouldn't go to college, but not everybody needs to go, and not everybody needs to go now. Maybe they go later, not right away. I was up in San Francisco a while ago doing a book signing. There was this guy buying a book, and he was in his 30s, and I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "I'm a fireman." And I said, "How long have you been a fireman?" He said, "Always. I've always been a fireman." And I said, "Well, when did you decide?" He said, "As a kid." He said, "Actually, it was a problem for me at school, because at school, everybody wanted to be a fireman." He said, "But I wanted to be a fireman, you know." And he said, "When I got to the senior year of school, my teachers didn't take it seriously. This one teacher didn't take it seriously. He said, I was throwing my life away if that's all I chose to do with it. That I should go to college, I should become a professional person, I had great potential, and I was wasting my talent to do that." And he said it was humiliating, because he said it in front of the whole class, and I really felt dreadful. But it's what I wanted. And as soon as I left school, I applied to the fire service, and I was accepted. And he said, "You know, I was thinking about that guy recently, just a few minutes ago when you were speaking about this teacher." He said, "Because 6 months ago, I saved his life." He said he was in a car wreck, and I pulled him out, gave him CPR, and I saved his wife's life as well. He said, "I think he thinks better of me now." You know what I mean? Human communities depend upon our diversity of talent, not a singular conception of ability. And at the heart of our challenges, at the heart of the challenge is to reconstitute our sense of ability and of intelligence. This linearity thing is a problem. When I arrived in LA a few years, about 9 years ago, I came across a policy statement, very well intentioned, which said college begins in kindergarten. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. If we had time, I could go into this, but we don't. Kindergarten begins in kindergarten. A friend of mine once said, you know, a 3-year-old is not half a 6-year-old. They're 3. But as we just heard in this last session, there's such competition now to get into kindergarten, to the right kindergarten, that people are being interviewed for it at 3. Sitting in front of unimpressed panels, you know, with their resumes. Flicking through it, saying, "What, this is it?" You've been around for 36 months and this is it? You know, you've achieved nothing. I mean, spent the first 6 months breastfeeding, what I can say. See, it's outrageous as a conception, but it tracks through. The other big issue is conformity. We have built our education systems on the model of fast food. This is something Jamie Oliver talked about the other day. You know, there are 2 models of quality assurance in catering. One is fast food, where everything is standardized. The other are things like Zagat and Michelin restaurants, where everything is not standardized. They're customized to local circumstances. And we have sold ourselves into a fast food model of education. And it's impoverishing our spirits and our energies as much as fast food is depleting our physical bodies. I think we have to recognize the other things here. One is that human talent is tremendously diverse. People have very different aptitudes. I worked out recently that I was given a guitar as a kid at about the same time that Eric Clapton got his first guitar. You know, it worked out for Eric, that's all I'm saying. You know, in a way, it did not for me. I could not get this thing to work, you know. No matter how often and how hard I blew into it, you know, it just wouldn't work. But it's not only about that, it's about passion. Often people are good at things they don't really care for. It's about passion and what excites our spirit and our energy. And if you're doing the thing that you love to do, that you're good at, time takes a different course entirely. My wife's just finished writing a novel, and I think it's a great book. But she disappears for hours on end. You know this. If you're doing something you love, an hour feels like 5 minutes. If you're doing something that doesn't resonate with your spirit, 5 minutes feels like an hour. And the reason so many people are opting out of education is because it doesn't feed their spirit. It doesn't feed their energy or their passion. So I think we have to change metaphors. We have to go from what is essentially an industrial model of education, a manufacturing model, which is based on linearity and conformity and batching people. We have to move to a model that is based more on principles of agriculture. We have to recognize that human flourishing is not a mechanical process, it's an organic process. And you cannot predict the outcome of human development. All you can do is, like a farmer, is create the conditions under which they will begin to flourish. So when we look at reforming education and transforming it, it isn't like cloning a system. There are great ones, like KIPS, it's a great system. There are many great models. It's about customizing to your circumstances and personalizing education to the people you're actually teaching. And doing that, I think, is the answer to the future, because it's not about scaling a new solution. It's about creating a movement in education in which people develop their own solutions, but with external support based on a personal curriculum. Now, in this room, there are people who represent extraordinary resources in business, in multimedia, in the internet. These technologies, combined with extraordinary talents of teachers, provide an opportunity to revolutionize education. And I urge you to get involved in it, because it's vital not just to ourselves, but to the future of our children. But we have to change from the industrial model to an agricultural model where each school can be flourishing tomorrow. That's where children experience life, or at home if that's where they choose to be educated with their families or their friends.
Okay, so may question pa sana ako kay Pacaanas eh. It just so happened that the video, as well as the last part of the video, answered my question. Kasi my question would be, what do you think will be the implication of the CBT in our society? As mentioned by the video, as mentioned by Pacaanas, it is actually a way in order for us to, to change, or not just reform. Sabi nga nung speaker, may I know who is the speaker, Pacaanas. Actually, it is the first time I watched, as well as I heard him speaking. Who is the speaker?
Sir Ian Ken Robinson is actually a British revolutionist. He's also a research scientist about education. Tapos, I heard na after watching TED Talk, he recently died of the pandemic. So, it kind of saddened me. But still, madami siyang videos na TED na parang nire-revolutionize niya. Tapos, ano siya sa mga opinion niya tungkol sa education.
Actually, it made me realize, after watching the video, it made me realize that CBT can be the answer or CBT can be the answer in how are we going to revolutionize education. Because as mentioned by Micay a while ago, the different advantages, it is self-paced. Isa sa mga tumatak din sa speech niya, wherein ang education natin, it is more on standardized. Kumbaga parang ito yung level, ito dapat yung ma-reach mo. Wherein, according to him, it should not be the kind of education that we have. It should be customized to your needs. Kaya sabi nga niya, kinompare niya yung sarili niya. When he got a guitar, it is the first time that Eric Clapton got his guitar also. You know who is Eric Clapton? He is a famous singer. Now, what he was pointing is, which really, really got my attention. Sabi niya gano'n na parang, kay Eric Clapton, guitar works, pero sa akin hindi. Meaning to say, it's really not my passion. You get the idea? So, it should be self-paced. So, the implication of CBT is actually malaking implication ng CBT that we can use. And I think, if I am going to answer the question of Sir Ian, to the one who spoke a while ago, I can see that CBT can be the answer if we are going to customize, if we are going to make sure that the competency that you really need, in the society, ayun yung kailangan talaga. And I would like to congratulate you, Pacaanas, and I would like you I would like to commend on your presentation. A very well engaging, pero may touch sa nakaka-inspire dun sa pinakadulong part. And I hope that mag-teacher ka na Pacaanas. I'm encouraging you to become a teacher because this is really easy. Okay? So, actually, yun naman po. Kayo lang naman yung aking question as well as nasagot naman na kanina. Thank you for your presentation. So, for our next discussion, would Pangan and Portillo. Are you prepared, Pangan and Portillo? Pangan muna. Pangan first. Pangan? Are you with us, Pangan? Parang wala si Pangan. Andiyan ba si Pangan? Hanapin nga natin si Pangan. Kasi kung wala siya, magpe-presenta lang ako ng sa Bintangan. De la Cruz and Legazpi, are you okay na? Pwede na kayong mag-proceed to your report. Ako na magpe-present nung sa'yo, Portillo. Sige, let's proceed to the discussion of Legazpi.
Sir, pwede po ba si Bacolod? Kasi nasa CP lang po gamit namin. Okay lang po.
Nakamute pala ako. Okay lang, no problem with that, Legazpi. Ang ganda nung report, ang ganda nung video na yun, Pacaanas. I will look for the video of Sir.
My name is Edward Billy Gaspi from CPD 22. Today I'm going to discuss the table of CPD. For competency-based training, before we proceed to our topic, we have to know and understand what the meaning of CPD. For competency-based training means that we all to know that CPD or competency-based training are more beneficial for adults because it strives to be more self-first course and program. It's focused on the final outcome and the adults want to learn new skills and interests that help them to impact of any areas of their life. Learning system that utilize explicit, measurable, transferable learning objective that empowers students, emphasize competency that include application, and creation of knowledge.
Naalala ko si Puri sa kanya.
Of importance.
Patay na ba si Kuray?
And disposition.
Ba't na meron kay Kuray?
CBT or competency-based training. As many
Yung galawan, tsaka kamukha ni Kuray. Hindi kawig lang yung...
The Aaron School defines CBT learning system utilize explicit, measurable, learning objectives that
yung pananalita tsaka yung galaw.
Students have a greater autonomy over the education and increase the opportunity to choose and how they learn and demonstrate their learning. In this procedure, teachers need to collaborate for the student. They increase the willingness of the one student want to learn and to be able to do. CBT defined as emphasize competencies that include application and creation of knowledge, along with the development of important skills and disposition, because the time by the student develop it to apply the broad set of skills that they learn. And by demonstrating these skills, the student is critical thinking and problem solving. Skills along with good communication, collaboration, cultural responsibility. The principle of CBT. Number 1, the training is based on the curriculum developed from the competency standard. Number 2, the training is based on the curriculum developed from the competency standard. Number 3, training delivery is individualized and self-paced. Number 4, training is based on work that must be performed. Number 5, training materials are directly related to the competency standard in the curriculum. As one explanation, the one principle of CBT is the training based on curriculum developed from the competency standard. It means that for training activities have an goal of achieving specific learning goals. The second principle of CBT is learning competency based on modules. Instruction before the learners can proceed to another competency. The learners must exhibit, demonstrate, complete competency in one module before going to the next one. A third principle of CBT is training delivery is individualized and self-paced. We also know that every individual has a different way of learning and adapting. Knowledge has a different learning needs. To the training delivery, need to address and knowledge every individual based on the way of learning. Different of learning needs. Fourth principle of CBT is training is based on work that must be performed the facilitator need to ensure that all training activities are already aligned with privileged industry standards. In this way, the students are prepared in the actual work environment. The fifth principle of CBT is training materials are directly to the related to competency, standard, and curriculum. From the meaning itself, the training materials are mandatory, directed to the competency. CBT or competency-based training is a related definition. Based on the field that human to know, CBT or competency-based training also define learners are not expected to perform less or better than others or competition. With others, it doesn't mean that they to do, not to do, learners or put the effort in what they do, but because every individual has a different way of learning and adapting. Knowledge by learners, demonstrating they can to do a task activity or exercise and address that they are confident. All training activities have a goal of achieving specific learning goals.
Okay, so Legaspi, okay ba yung kanang kamay mo? Kasi putol yata yung kanang kamay mo sa video, hindi MG's kidding. Anyway, I would like to, for the first timer na mag-discuss si Legaspi, first time mo na, at least nakikita mo yung effort niya as well as the preparation on the said output. But you can do better than that, no? Don't forget that. Now, regarding to your topic, no, the 10 principles of the competency-based training, if you are going to teach, no, and you are going to use the CPT, especially if you are going to teach in adult learning, you must really follow that principles, no? That principle will serve as your guide, no, in order for you to become an effective teacher using the CBT. Kasi ang CBT kasi medyo mahirap siya in a way that if your approach, for example, if your approach is parang not parallel to the needs of the students, then it will be ineffective. So the purpose of CBT will be forfeited. Kumbaga parang masasayang na. Kasi nga, especially if you're not going to follow the 10 principle, especially yung part na all of the competency as well as all of the standards must be coming from a curriculum. As a teacher of CPT, you cannot create your own competence. It must follow a standard. It must follow a, what I call this one? It must follow minsan nanggagaling siya sa TESDA, minsan nanggagaling din siya sa CHED. Now sir, paano namin mako-customize? Kasi we really wanted to create a competency. Yes, it is possible. However, it must be really aligned to the competency given by the CHED or given by the TESDA. For example, CPT kayo, ang competency lang na binigay sa inyo, for example, is how to troubleshoot laptop. For example, how to troubleshoot laptop. Now, ayun ang ituturo ng competency. Pero, you can create another competency under the said competency. Halimbawa, aside from teaching them how to troubleshoot laptop, pwede nyo silang turuan how to troubleshoot desktop. You get the idea? But you must really follow the competency. As a teacher, ayun ang dapat nyo, ayun yung pinaka-dapat nyo sundin. Okay? So, it's 6:17 already. Sila, ilan pa ito mag-report natin? Si De La Cruz, si Portillo, Pangan, Bacolod, and Marino. So, by next meeting, kaya natin yan. Magsa-start tayo ng 5:15. Pero again, but make sure that your video presentation will only last for at least 5 to 10 minutes kasi i-skip na nga natin yung motivation. You have to skip the motivation in order for us to maximize the time. Okay? So, by next, if you don't have any questions regarding to the discussion of Micay, Pacaanas, and Legazpi, we can call it a day. So, I hope that you learned something on the discussion of Micay, Pacaanas, and Legazpi.
Tanungin ba kita, Micay?
So far?
Ha?
Ano pare?
Tanungin ba kita?
Do you have any questions?
Ha?
Tanungin ba kita sa
Regarding
report
sa
mo?
activity?
Ikaw, bahala ka.
Okay, wala na. Okay, so I think there's none. So
No,
again, I would
maatake
like
ako
to congratulate Micay, Pacaanas, and Legazpi
Bakit?
for a wonderful presentation today. Okay? So let's call it a day. Have a nice day. See you. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you po, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Ano, Joe?
Okay.
Tinutoyo ka na naman, pare, ha? Kain ka muna ng cake para di mainit ulo mo. Kain ka muna ng cake. Yan. Oh,
Clash of Clans.
bagong laro yan, ha? Na-download ko nga